Just in, President Buhari meets Obasanjo in Addis Ababa. President Muhammadu Buhari and former President Muhammadu Buhari met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia today, Sunday, January 29. This is the first time both men are meeting since Obasanjo advised President Buhari not to recontest in 2019 in a widely publicized letter. President Buhari and Obasanjo are attending the 30th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union in Addis Ababa. President Muhammadu Buhari and former President Olusegun Obasanjo met today, Sunday, January 29 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, at the opening session of the 30th African Union Summit. This is the first time both men are meeting since Obasanjo advised President Buhari not to recontest in 2019 in a widely publicized letter. They both shook hands and talked for about 2 minutes in a short video posted by the president's aide, Bashir Ahmed, on Twitter. A former head of state, General Abdul Salami Abubakar, later joined Buhari and Obasanjo for a snapshot. Obasanjo's letter to President Buhari is still a trending topic in the country. The former president had accused Buhari of nepotism and failure to revive the economy, among others. Meanwhile, the Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, ANRP, has responded to Obasanjo's call for Nigerians to gravitate towards a new political coalition that will replace the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, and main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Obasanjo had described the two major parties as unworthy of leading Nigeria and called for a coalition of fresh minds to rescue the country from the grip of the two in the next general elections. In an open letter addressed to Obasanjo, the ANRP described itself as a political organization founded on openness and transparency, adding that it is at home with the periodic interventions the former president makes, via letters, to those in government. Meanwhile, President Buhari said he was inspired to champion against corruption. President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday in Addis Ababa described corruption as one of the greatest evils of our time. Speaking while formally launching the African Anti-Corruption Year 2018 during the opening ceremony of the 30th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union in the Ethiopian capital, the president declared, "Corruption is indeed one of the greatest evils of our time. Corruption rewards those who do not play by the rules and also creates a system of distortion and diversion, thereby destroying all efforts at constructive, just and fair governance." Being the champion of the theme of the 30th O Summit, namely, winning the fight against corruption, a sustainable path to Africa's transformation, President Buhari thanked his African colleagues for entrusting him with such a noble responsibility. He pledged to do his best to ensure that the anti-corruption agenda will receive the attention it deserves and make the impact we all hope for, during 2018 and beyond. The president, who noted that Africa has made some significant strides in enacting legal and policy frameworks such as the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, AUCPCC, to address the vice, said the desired impact had been lacking. 15 years after the adoption of the African Union Convention, 2018 provides a good starting point to take stock of progress made so far, assess what still needs to be done and devise new strategies to address new corruption challenges, he said. According to President Buhari, in spite of sustained economic growth on the continent for the past 2 decades, public confidence has been eroded by a focus on short-term priorities and payoffs, propelled by corruption, which too often leaves projects uncompleted and promises unfulfilled. He identified other negative effects of corruption as posing a real threat to national security, eroding the development of a universal culture of good governance, democratic values, gender equality, human rights, justice and the rule of law. In tackling bribery and corruption, the Nigerian leader said the crucial place of strong institutions cannot be overemphasized. A judiciary which stands firm against arbitrariness and injustice by the executive is a vital pillar in the anti-corruption fight. As leaders, we must build synergy between the executive, legislative and judicial arms of government in order to entrench good governance, transparency and accountability. Strong institutions are a necessary condition in any society which aims to fight corruption. In building strong national and regional institutions, we must adequately empower our national anti-corruption agencies and insulate them from political influence. We have to encourage increased institutional collaboration between law enforcement agencies and anti-corruption agencies in order to win this fight, he stated. Justifying further the imperative to defeat the evil which corruption represented, President Buhari said, "It is evident that corruption has a devastating impact on marginalized communities, especially the youth, women and children. Corruption breeds unequal societies, renders vulnerable groups prone to human trafficking, as well as recruitment into armed groups and militia. In effect, corruption deprives our young citizens of opportunities to develop meaningful livelihoods." He listed his priorities in the campaign against corruption in 2018 to include, organizing African youth congresses against corruption in order to sensitize and engage our youth in the fight against corruption, mobilizing all member states to implement the extant legal framework on corruption, and canvassing for the strengthening of the criminal justice system across Africa through exchange of information and sharing best practices in the enforcement of anti-corruption laws. The president, who called for the strengthening of the Advisory Board on Corruption to make it more proactive, also proposed to enlist the support of parliamentarians, women associations, the media, business community, faith-based groups, the youth, educational institutions and traditional rulers, among others, in the campaign. Revealing that Africa loses about $50 billion annually to corruption, he advocated greater efforts in addressing the causal relationship between corruption and illicit financial flows. Drawing the attention of his colleagues to the corrosive role that tax havens and secret jurisdictions play in concealing ill-gotten assets, President Buhari said the continental body must do more to stop the continuous assault on our economic and financial resources by multinationals in collusion with some of our citizens. Observing that tackling corrupt acts and greed required a reorientation of attitudes and perceptions, he declared, "To win the fight against corruption, we must have a change of mindset." Reminding his fellow African leaders that the honorable campaign against corruption will not be an easy task because corruption does fight back, he, however, advised them to remain firm and resolute. The Nigerian leader, who said he was inspired to champion the campaign against corruption by the commitment, encouragement and support of his colleagues, said, "In Nigeria we have gone far into the implementation of our change agenda, which is primarily aimed at fighting corruption." President Buhari also reiterated Nigeria's abiding commitment to the fight against corruption today, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow.